I want to encourage you today to keep your dreams alive. The dreams that are on the inside of you, things that maybe you have given up on, I want you to get them back. I want you to get honest with yourself, get serious about fulfilling the destiny and the thing that God's called you to do. And I want you to recognize where you've been distracted and why you've been distracted, and determine that this is the year you're going to go towards those dreams, that you're not going to repeat this year what you did last year. You know, in order to do that, you've got to focus on God. You have to make Him the number one priority of your life. Set goals for your relationship with God. Start spending more time with Him than you normally would spend. And I'm telling you, that alone will change your life. When you make God the number one focus, it will change your life. It'll change the way you think, the way you talk, the way you act, the way you see yourself. It will change everything in your life. Another thing is I want you to focus on thinking. Just focus on thinking about what God's called you to do. You know, that it's been said that we spend more time planning a vacation than we do planning our lives. And if you think about it, it's true. When you're about to go on a vacation, you put a lot of thought into it. You ask people, you go online, you research things, you save money for it, you plan for it. We put so much thought and planning into a vacation, and then when it comes to our own lives, we just kind of get into that rut of day to day, go to work, come home, go to work, come home. And before you know it, years have gone by, and you're really not doing anything different. I know that was the case in my life. I wasn't making God like the number one thing in my life, although I went to church, read the Bible occasionally, went to work, came home, went to work, came home, and my life was in a standstill. It wasn't changing year after year. But you know, you've got to seriously just think. Just set time aside to just think. What does God want me to do with my life? You know, it's been said that thinking precedes achievement. That, you know, you think about the word think. It actually means to imagine, to concentrate, to focus, to center your attention on. You know, Proverbs says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. But you've got to give time to just thinking. Don't always be in a hurry. Don't always just think, oh, I don't have time to do that. It's a waste of time. No, thinking precedes achievement. Anybody who's achieved great wealth or success, they thought. They gave some thought to what they wanted to do. And you know, I heard a story just the other day about a guy named John Kilcullen. And it said that he went to dinner one night with a bunch of friends. And as he's sitting at the table, one of the friends tells a story about being in the bookstore earlier that day. And he said that while he's in the bookstore, this customer walked up to someone who worked there and said, "Do you have any books on Microsoft DOS, something like DOS for Dummies?" Well, everybody started laughing at the dinner table, you know, that this lady would say that. Well, John Kilcullen didn't just laugh about it, he thought about it. And he thought about it. And he thought about it. And where other people thought it's just a passing joke, it's just conversation at the table, this guy thought about it. And he thought, what if I came out with a book called Microsoft DOS for Dummies? And he did. He came out with the Dummies books. Now, all because he gave thought to what he wanted to do. And you know, these Dummies books, they have everything from gardening for dummies, scrapbooking for dummies. They have everything. And I just saw the other day, it said that there are 370 titles of Dummies books, 31 languages, and over 60 million copies have been sold. Not $60 million, 60 million copies have been sold. All because he thought. And that's what I want you to do, is just think about what God's called you to do. Why have you been born? What did He put you on this earth to accomplish with your life? And you know, Habakkuk, it says, write the vision, make it plain. I heard someone say the other day, don't just think it, ink it. Just write it down. Write down, even if it's a crazy thought, it looks foolish. Don't write with the idea that somebody else is going to read it and they're going to laugh at you and make fun of you. Just write it. Write all those ideas down. I'm sure people thought John Kilcullen was crazy to write, what if I come out with a whole series of books for dummies? That could offend people. But he did it. So I want you to just think about it. Find a place to think and be consistent with it. Give place to thinking. You know, every day you should give yourself a few minutes to just think. And always take a little journal or something with you to write it down. Well, thinking precedes achievement. The other thing is focus your faith for the impossible. That is so important. If you want to do what God's put you on this earth to do, I want you to know it's going to be impossible. because God would never just give you everything you need and say, just do it. And it's simple and it's easy and requires no faith. Anything God's called you to do, it's going to require faith for the impossible. And that's going to take you doing something every day to keep your faith strong. You know, if my dad told me he wanted me to teach French, to his staff, I would do it and I wouldn't even pray about it because I've studied French, I have experience with French, but no, preaching and doing podcasts and being in front of a camera, I am so dependent on God, but it takes faith to do what God's called you to do. And I want you to do something every day to keep your faith alive, to keep your faith stronger and stronger so that next month your faith is stronger than it is this month. Now I want to read a story to you that I believe will encourage you from somebody who kept their faith alive no matter how impossible, no matter how many distractions were brought against them. They kept their dream alive. Listen to this. It says, Charles Darrow, who lived in the early 1920s, when he was 20 years old, he set a goal to be a millionaire, which isn't a whole lot now, but in the 1920s, that was huge. It says, even when he married his wife Esther, he promised her that someday they would be millionaires. But then tragedy struck. In 1929, the Great Depression hit. It says both Charles and Esther, they lost their jobs, they mortgaged their home, they lost their car, and they used up their entire life savings. Then it says Charles was devastated. He sat around the house depressed until one day he told his wife that she just needed to leave him because it was clear they were never going to meet their goal and she should just go find somebody else who could take better care of her. Well, thank goodness, while he was feeling hopeless and discouraged, Esther wasn't. She stayed full of hope, full of faith, and she kept her dream alive. It says here, Esther wasn't about to leave. She told Charles, we're going to reach our goal. She said, but every day we need to do something to keep our dream alive. Keep it alive, Charles said. It's already dead. We've already failed. But Esther refused to believe it. She suggested they take some time every night to discuss what they would do when they reached their goal of being millionaires. They began doing that each night after dinner. And soon Charles came up with an idea to create play money. He said, we don't have any real money, so let's make some play money. Something appealing since they had no money back in those days. So he sat around with lots of time and he made play money. He and his wife pretended to buy things like little houses, properties, and other buildings. And they finally turned it into a full-fledged game with board, with dice, with cards, little houses, and little hotels. And I'm sure you know right now, that game is probably in your closet somewhere today, and that's Monopoly. Well, Charles and his friends and his family, they enjoyed it so much that in 1934, they persuaded him to approach Parker Brothers. And when they approached them, the executives there rejected it. They found the game dull, the action slow, and the rules hopelessly complex. Charles, however, persevered, and his wife kept encouraging him. She said, let's approach Wanamaker's toy store and see if they'll buy it. So he said, if they'll stock the game, we'll take out a loan and we'll create 5,000 of them. The game took off, and suddenly Parker Brothers became very interested. They replayed the game, but this time they found the game imaginative, fast-paced, and surprisingly easy to master. The game was copyrighted in 1935, and you guessed it, they sold it to Parker Brothers for $1 million. Now that story should encourage you. Do something every day to keep your dreams alive.